Alright, it's only the beginning of 2013 and already I am making myself a very busy bee. However, though, while there will be an episode detailing this fully at the end of the month, it's going to be a monthly to bi-monthly show, depending on how much progress is made in a month, but currently, one of the goals I'm going to be making for 2013 is to make a game. Not a very complex game, and it's not using a very complex engine, but to make a game to distribute out to you guys. And of course, knowing me, it's going to be a horror game. You know, you'll love those horror games. However, though, different than most game development systems, I'm going to be sort of having an active community role in the sense that I'm hoping to release lots of demos, videos, and such to you guys, as well as showing you monthly videos per month of the progress. Now, what is the game in question? Currently, my code name for it is Project Snowbound. This is actually not being created all in 2013. Lots of the groundwork of this was actually made previously in 2012. This is a project which has sort of evolved and changed since about spring of last year. Conceptually, it's already all made, and lots of the assets have already been made as well, but it's just not put together, and in that sense, it's being made from the ground up, but not all of the assets used for it was made from the ground up. For instance, you should be hearing some music right now in the actual video, and this is some stuff I sort of arranged with other people. Not all of it is going to be used in the project. In fact, maybe none of it's used in the project. I haven't decided yet. And I mean, it's nice to have, but I'm not sure if it's going to be used. Now, what's the actual game itself is what you're probably going to be asking. Well, of course, it's obvious. So I'll try my best to describe it in this sort of improv situation because I'm literally just taking a break in between animating something and editing something else. So, anyway. Project Snowbound is a 2D atmospheric survival horror game where choices make a difference and madness goes hand in hand with memories. That's my official synopsis for it, just describing it in a nutshell. The game stars a young girl named Mayuki. She dons this scarf that covers most of her face and a long jacket, and she is taking a trip with a family. At first, you might suspect it might be her own family, but it quickly becomes apparent that while she is close to these people, she doesn't actually belong to them. And the reason for this is because she's taking the trip with her closest thing to a friend she has, Nami. Mayuki and Nami, they aren't exactly friends in the proper sense, but they do both rely on each other. Now, Mayuki is kind of a silent protagonist, but she does speak, mostly in player-integrated dialogue. And this goes back to one of the things that I was mentioning earlier, choices in this game, and this was an emphasis on development for myself, an emphasis going into the project. I have been somewhat annoyed by games that have choice systems that really don't do anything with them. They essentially only have a choice system for the sake of having a choice system, so they can put it on the back of the box. And there's been recent examples, and it got even worse in 2012 than I expected. The point is, though, if you're going to have a choice system, I believe that it should be fleshed out into such a way where choices do matter, people actually feel like what they do makes a difference, and as such. So I decided that with that sort of mindset, I wanted to go into the game, and the essential idea is that the gameplay itself is going to be pretty simple, but what the whole experience is kind of rather complex, and that was kind of the mindset going into this, that I would have to organize things very well. I would have to use my skills to create very good atmosphere, make their looming threat a danger to the player, as well as making them feel like essentially the whole fate of everything going on in the situation relies on their own shoulders. The basic idea is that on their trip, they're heading out towards a resort. Unfortunately, things go a bit wrong, and soon they end up sort of snowed in with a lodge with over 20 other people. And the whole case is not everyone in this mansion or lodge can be trusted, and not everyone is bad either, but there's actually some pretty good people here too. But everyone here has the potential to die, including yourself, of course, and you need to figure out who do you want to work with, who can I trust, in this choice situation, should I believe him, her, should I head and follow this person's plan, and those type of things. And you kind of have to get closer to the people in the lodge, you get their cell phone numbers, keep in touch with them as you go off and do your own thing, and it becomes pretty evident pretty quickly that there is a sort of madness and evil that's lingering over this lodge as they're snowed in. And let's see the best way to explain this part without too much. Mayuki has to make some tough choices. She has to call the shots, and this is for her and other survival. A dark presence is just lingering over this lodge, just spreading madness and a growing threat, and you essentially have to help Mayuki and anyone else you want to save get through the night. And it's not just saving the people. The other people each have their own links into exactly what's going on, and also, they have their own story arcs. Essentially, you can follow the plot threads you wish to follow. Like maybe in one playthrough, you can follow, let's just say Ami, because that's the one other character I've mentioned in name. And Ami, she's kind of defenseless. She's kind of, to be honest, she's kind of bratty. But at the exact same time, she's kind of dependent on other people. And so if you try to get closer with Ami, she's going to latch onto you. And there's advantages and disadvantages to having Ami latch onto you like that. And that's only if you want Ami to be with you. Now, there's other characters that don't really like Ami. So if you have a relationship that's growing with Ami, it will lower your relationship with other characters, and they will think less fondly of you. And that sort of stuff makes a big difference in the long term of things, because I'm not going to say exactly the specifics here, but let's just say that can end you up in some pretty deep shit, and in other ways it can help you get through things that might have been difficult in another playthrough if you were doing different things. Now then, and that's not to even say that you would experience the same things. Where you go in the terms of, it's not really a proper time system, because like time flows through a rapid flow, but essentially as you do things in the game, time does progress, and what you do at each individual time frame does make a difference. Now, what's the actual threat? I better get to that before I continue talking about all this. There are a variety of so-called monsters. They cannot be killed, and with that, they don't... Not all monsters will appear in a single playthrough. I do have a good assortment, and I did talk a little bit about this in my Facebook page, so I'll just mention what I mentioned there, the 2 monsters I brought up there. And as I said, I've been doing a lot of study myself on how to get AI to work properly in the system, so I do have good confidence, and I've already sort of made some testing to see if I can get these monsters' behaviors to work. So far it's been so good, because I think that one problem I have with lots of recent indie horror games, they'll usually make like one monster, or you have one sort of behavior that you need to figure out, you sort of get stuck with, and then when you try to expand, like essentially when you figure out how the monster works, the game gets less terrifying, because unless of course you have a very complex, interesting monster that stays terrifying throughout, the actual behaviors the monster gets are predictable, and when they get predictable, it gets kind of more, not boring, but just less exciting to deal with the monster, or less terrifying if that's the case. There needs to be a constant sense of, I don't know what's going to happen. And again, just like how with other things in the game, your choices may cause other monsters to sort of go through the mansion. From this, I took inspiration from lots of different horror games I played over time. I was thinking, what type of monsters have truly scared me? What type of behaviors have I never seen in a horror game, but I always would love to see? And that sort of thing, not to mention just personal things of what I think is personally creepy and such, and giving it reason behind the game to exist. Now, the 2 I gave examples of, someone was asking me, because there was a joke, because I played the game Lawnning Ribbon, and there was this whole lawn sequence where I was getting really, really annoyed, because the game had turn-based battles, and they were throwing furniture at me over and over again. Like, the main enemy force in that game was a bunch of furniture. It's not terrifying, for one. Second of all, the furniture was actually really annoying, because it just continuously came at you, like, boom, boom, boom. And in that game, you didn't get any experience points. Now, this isn't an RPG, and the game I'm referring to is an RPG Maker game, but it was a joke, which they were saying in the comments, which is why I talked about this, because I was thinking, well, I want to have more open development cycles so I can talk more about the actual game. The first type of monster, which I kind of detailed, which I will explain a bit here, it's kind of, well, think of its form kind of like a skinless human, like the figure of a man, not exactly in the sense. It kind of walks in the way that characters like the Grudge Girls and all that walk, except I tried to make it look a little bit more, I guess what I was thinking of was a salamander, but kind of you turned a salamander into a man shape, made him all fleshy and gross, and gave him the ability to cling onto walls and ceilings and all that. And this monster is blind, so it won't be chasing you unless it hears you. That's one thing which I was going to mention, is that there is a sound system in this game to have monsters detect you. Essentially, when it's crawling around and all that, it's actually very slow. It makes this kind of slight breathing noise when it's going around, and when it's in the area with you, you want to be silent. You could just stand still and wait for it to pass, unless, of course, you're unfortunate enough it's kind of walking your way. Running will attract it, just like other sort of behaviors. I shouldn't probably say too much about what can attract it, because that leaves a sense of mystery, and whenever this monster shows up, like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? I should also mention, while I have made scripted moments with the monsters, one of my goals was, and this was inspired again by games I've played, is to make a random element to the monsters when they'll show up. I want to make sure that the player never feels safe, even if it's in a puzzle, or even if they feel in a typical save room they might be safe. They may not be completely safe as they think. However, though, the moment the monster hears you, it will charge full on ahead at you, and I got this really creepy streak noise I made myself with my voice, but that's a story for another time. The reason why I brought that up was to make an example that I do want to make some interesting monsters in terms of behavior. Another monster is kind of a twist off the furniture thing, which is, it wasn't inspired by Lonnie Ribbon, but I thought it was kind of funny. This was actually inspired by a game I had sort of made for myself a long time ago, and it's essentially a monster that takes on the shape of other objects, sort of like an illusion type deal. But you can notice it's not, if you pay close enough attention, you'll notice that there might be an object that looks a little bit off, and if you notice that offness, you cannot get near the object, and thus it won't summon the monster. Though if you get too close to the object, the monster will show its true form and start chasing you. Pretty simple, but pretty effective, I find. Let's see. Now, during the game, and as I said, I'm going to try to cut this off at 15 minutes for talking, because I know you're just looking at a black screen listening to me talk about something that you haven't seen yet. You'll see at the end of the month, though. You need to keep in contact with the people you're with via cell phone. You can find out their location to come join them, etc., etc., etc. But that's not to say that getting to them will always be easy. The actual place I have littered with, of course, what else in horror games, and these have been a lot of fun for me to make in the past, puzzles! Now, I have a love-hate thing with puzzles. There's some puzzles I love, there's some puzzles I hate. I tried my hardest to make sure that the puzzles were challenging but fun. I pulled inspiration from this one from a lot of games, not even just horror games, just lots of games in general where I think, what type of puzzles do I generally find to be fun? Which ones do I generally find to be annoying as fuck? What is a good challenge? Because I hate puzzles that are like too easy. You want to have that aha moment when you have a puzzle, but you don't want to frustrate them too much or make some really overly complex puzzle that just isn't fun. Complex puzzles aren't bad, but what type of mechanics are interesting to a puzzle to keep the player engaged and not break them out of immersion? Not to mention, if I'm going to have it so that monsters can potentially show up during puzzles, I need to make sure that they're well designed to the point that it won't interfere with the player's progress of trying to figure it out. Of course, I want them to panic a little bit, but not get them to the point where they're just getting frustrated. Anything else I want to say right now about the game? What I can say is that I hope you guys enjoy the progress. I will want to get a lot of feedback from you guys. That's why I'm even doing this whole open community thing in the first place, to see if you guys find glitches, or not even just glitches, just to see feedback on your opinions on the game, what could be improved, what you really like a lot, critique, questions, etc., etc. I won't be answering too much about the game at this point. I probably will after the first couple months when I talk a little bit more about things. Like, I can talk a little bit about anything that you have questions about. I'm not sure how many people are going to be interested in the project yet, but hopefully as I release more gameplay, demos, etc., 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 it will catch your interest a bit more. The goal of the project is to see if I can finish it by the beginning of 2014. That if I cannot do it by that time, though, I will go deeper into progress past then. Again, it's not going to be a very complex game gameplay-wise. The engine I'm using isn't very complex. However, what I'm trying to do is to use a simple base and build up on top of it to make a better quality game and to make lots of intrigue. I am using a lot of developer tricks, and I'll talk more about that, what I mean by that later, but in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoy, and as I said, this should be an interesting development cycle for Project Snowbound. Catch you guys next time.